Hello everyone, this is RaySpace, here to introduce a new major mod for Kerbal Space Program 1.12, preferably with realism overhaul, but not necessarily. I haven't tested it out in stock, so there's that, but otherwise it should work with stock, but use it at your own risk. It definitely requires textures unlimited, and basically these are futuristic parts, mainly habs. And so here we have what I sort of think of as the Marshmallow Hab. It's based on the NTP architecture from NASA, so there's Hab for NTP architecture. This particular one does not allow EVAs, and the interior is just a hitchhiker storage container. So since it doesn't allow EVAs, you should probably put a docking port on it. It does have built-in RCS thrusters, and it's got MH and Mod 3 right now, though I'm thinking of changing that to hydrolocks. But that depends on your point of view, whether you want to deal with MLI layers and the potential for boil off and everything. But it's got some food, water, and oxygen. It's meant for a crew of 4 to carry them to Mars and back. So that's why it's got 2 years and 270 days. It's fairly light for what it is. The impression was that it is an inflatable one. So that's why it is relatively light. So, yeah. That is one hab, but there are many more habs included in this pack. There's hab 2. It doesn't look as... it looks weird, doesn't it? I mean, to be fair, it looks weird. However, it's got many, many valuable features. First of all, it's actually got a pod bay. And it's a smiley face pod bay, because I was in that sort of mood. But the pod bay includes in this mod a pod. And so there's a pod for the pod bay, and you'll probably want to put a docking port at the bottom of it. Let's see if I can put this together quickly. So we would have a docking port at the bottom, docking port like that, and then one of these. I wish they would... I swear the propellant-only docking port used to be smaller or something. But anyway, it'd be like that. And that little pod has EVA capability, so a Kerbal can get in, and it has a small amount of food, water, and oxygen, and it's got hydrazine RCS, so it can maneuver itself. That's what the tanks in the back are. And it's got a claw. So the little arms, they act like a claw. So you can arm the claw and disarm the claw, and they should hopefully work. It does have an IVA as well. So it is... for your 2001 A Space Odyssey reenactments, well, humorous 2001 A Space Odyssey reenactments, here we go. Not a very serious 2001 A Space Odyssey reenactment with this smiley face one, but hey, it was an idea. I don't know why that's going on like that. I'll have to check, but we probably don't want that to happen, otherwise it'll occupy the wrong port. So that little thing is backwards, but we can still slap it on like that as a surface attachment. So yeah, that's why it has that area right there, so you can put a docking port as well. And then it actually has the physical manifestation of all the food, water, and oxygen there. I think, how much does this have? This doesn't have as much as the other one, so sort of a faster deal. If you're going to do rotations to generate artificial gravity, then remember this side would be the floor that you want, and so this side will actually be attached to the rest of the ship, and the engines or whatever is the counterweight will be on that end from this nose. Now this comes with a habitat level. So you have level 2, so it attaches like this, and let's flip it around so we can see what's inside. We have little berths, we have a computer, we have a treadmill, that's a Colbert treadmill. The computers and treadmill textures and model are from the NASA ISS model. And so we've got a few interior items there, and the Kerbals can EVA out from this location here. So if you press EVA, they'll pop out here and you can board through there. And so then that's one way they can access the hab. Another way is if you've closed the front door, you can open this side, and then they can float out and in through there. So that is how these work. And you can see this has an opening, and you can close that back door if you want this to be the last one. And it also has built-in aquaponics to generate food. So that is another feature. No storage capacity built into here. You'll have to clip some tanks if you want some additional storage. So that is the HAB level. That is also compatible with HAB 3. This is the HAB 3 body. It's very similar to the features that we have with the HAB 2 body, except this doesn't have any sort of pod bay. It does have an escape cabin. So this cabin allows for decoupling and escape. It's got thrusters to do a launch abort. You'd have to slap parachutes on it, but it could do it. I've tested that out before. Same EVA capability through this hatch, and same idea. If you cycle the hatches, they can go in through there, and you can put one of these habs there. And so they can go through that hab, and then we've got an airlock. This is the first time I'm seeing this with this texture. It otherwise has a shinier texture when I normally use it, but one thing that I've used all these parts for a long time now, and the reason I'm introducing all this now is because I finally got around to sort of dealing with all the textures and trying to simplify them. And so not all the parts are as nifty as I normally make them. Most of these are. But I've reduced the texture size so much that the mod size has gone from about 450 megabytes to 230. So I've cut it about in half. But I've done that by having them share more parts and more textures. Share more textures, and that means that the textures are more generic. I'll try and add details in other ways later on. But anyway, that's an airlock part, and so we can open the airlock like that, and they can float out. That's all pass-through. So there's an IVA in this part. So that's a part that the Kerbals, you can do a normal IVA, and that's a custom IVA. The HAB 2 also has the same custom IVA, but everywhere else is pass-through. So the Kerbals float through everything else. And so if you want to dock this to something, you'd probably need a pass-through port for that part, unless you just don't care about them going out of it. If you don't care about them going out of it, then you can use a normal docking port. But I'll try and add, I haven't added the pass-through docking ports to this yet. I'll try and remember to do that. So those are the habs. There's 3 habs like that, but there's many more parts. But you can see the sort of complexity that we're talking about here. And these are fancy parts, but also sort of idiosyncratic, I guess we could say. They're their own sort of thing. And that's true of all the parts that we're going to see. But some of them, like the Marshmallow Hab, is from the NASA architecture, NTP architecture, and so are these NTP core and NTP tanks. So the NASA architecture sort of had these tanks looking like that, and then there's 2 sizes. There's a 6-meter size and an 8-meter size, 8.4 meter size. And then there's the core tank. That's the one that's supposed to be in the back. It's lighter so that it can accommodate the engines. So I'm also providing the engines. You have a choice. For nuclear engines, we have included the Timberwinds. And so there's 450, well, it's a little bit less than 450 kilonewton Timberwind, a little less than 750. These are the ones that were named as made. So these were, well, this will be too small a tank for this. Oops, meter tanks. This obviously won't go with that. In fact, it probably doesn't go with the 8.4 meter tanks either, but we also have the version that actually came with the NASA NTP architecture, which is not a Timberwind. So this is the one that was actually part of their plan, and I think their plan actually had well, let me get to there. Yeah, had 3 of them on. Sorry about the mounts. I'll try and deal with that at some point. My main work this time around was to make sure that the textures were more manageable. Now the base here is actually meant for the 8.4 meter one, or maybe not. Thought there was a version that actually had exactly the same match, so I'm a little bit perturbed. The reason why these have MMH and Mon 3 is because that's what the NASA architecture had in it, but I still think that hydrolocks would be better, just because it simplifies things a whole lot since we have 2 different propellants instead of 3. And well, on these tanks we already have to have the MLI layers to contain all the hydrogen for the NTP, so yeah. So we're going to have that anyway. So we've got that. Now we've got the sort of standalone nuclear stage. Oh, this is the tank for those tanks, but then there's the one that's sized. I was wondering where the one that was sized for this was. It's down here. So there we go. That's a perfect fit. That's the one that says tank for NASA NTP architecture. Same idea, different size. So we've got that, and then we have a standalone stage. I guess that's up here somewhere. Where are you? There we go. This is the Fuji hydrogen stage, and so this is also supposed to have the NTP engines like the Timberwinds. So we can put a Timberwind here. That's a little bit big anyway. The good thing about this stage is it's got built-in hydrolocks OMS so that it can complete orbit on its own. So that's why it's got oxygen. If you want to make it more efficient, you would probably reduce how much oxygen it's carrying. It's carrying as much as it can. It can take the boil off. It's got room for hydrogen and oxygen, and then you can cryo cool the hydrogen and oxygen cool the oxygen. It can run off of a fuel cell. It can extend a radiator. I don't know if the radiator is working right, so that's a whole business. But it's got RCS. You'll put a docking port or some sort of adapter on top. And that's the Fuji stage. So it's a nice hydrogen stage to use with the NTPs as a tug. In the previous video, I introduced the large RCS module. That's now part of this mod, so it'll just overwrite it if you have it already. So that's this one that has extendable RCS. So well, I'll create trusses for this, but this has tweak scale. So you can scale it to one of these. But these already have RCS built in, so you don't need it for this one unless you need some more RCS. And so if it's like that, and you can tweak scale it to whichever tank you need it. And those RCS run on hydrolocks or water. There's 2 possibilities. If you wanted to get rid of your tanks in the middle, we have the NTP drop tank assembly. There's that. This can carry the tanks over to whatever ship you're building. You'll have to have docking ports, so typically you'll have a docking port in front and also a propellant-only docking port for the drop tank like this. And then you can say drop tank, and I've decided to make it foil. Probably ought to be shinier. I'll try and make it shinier. But there we have it. That's an NTP drop tank, and you could have a whole bunch of those. The frames will carry them into place. These will just have the fuel and then drop off. You should probably add MLI layers. Okay, so that is one of those. And I showed off the pod, I showed off the particle bed NTPs. And so now we have the really outlandish things. Oh, I do have this for use with the NTP engine plus ion engines. So if you wanted to have ion engines on the side here plus an NTP engine, this is really meant for lackluster labs, those engines in particular, which are blocky and otherwise don't look right. But it's not really meant for this one. It's meant for the NASA architecture one, which is smaller, 111 kilonewtons. Yeah, it's meant for that. And then ion engines on the side. It carries xenon gas plus hydrogen, and then plus some RCS, which is MMH and Mon 3. So it's got all the above plus reactors. Those little nodules, those are reactors. And so I think it generates 400 kilonewtons. Yes, it generates 400 sorry, not kilonewtons, 400 kilowatts, 100 per module. So that's that kind of part. Okay, more outlandish. Advanced Starship. This is one I proposed as once they add the long starship, I figured I would do something with the long starship, and this is what I did. So it's got solar panels like that. It's got radiators in the back, though I don't know if they function right, especially depending on which mods you're using, like KSP Interstellar it's not going to work for, Far Future it's not going to work for. You can add MLI layers. It has a special set of tanks in the center. These xenon tanks are meant to clip into here so that their center of mass is measured differently than the rest, and it's meant to have ion engine. It's meant to have one nuclear engine along with some Raptors in the back, and then it's meant to have ion engines down the center here. And ideally they should be shifting, but that's a whole other story. But yes, this is a very special ship, and you're wondering about the gap. Well, you can fill it with anything you want. It doesn't have a door, but it's meant to fit the habs, and specifically this one. So ideally, I wonder, I think we go from the back to the front. So put hab level, oh, I think it's the symmetry there. There we go, hab level, hab level, hab level, body, and it's clipping a little bit. Just a little nudge in the back there. And then the airlock, I always put the door side up. Ignore those tanks. And this is also meant for an earlier model without the tanks like that. And then the escape thing. So you see it fits very nicely in there and looks like a proper vessel. And that is the Advanced Starship. It is largely filled with hydrolocks. So it's not a methane oxygen thing. So if you're going to use it, you're going to use a hydrolocks config on Raptor. The model is partly Pekka's Starship model. Partly I've done horrible things to it, basically. So hopefully Pekka doesn't mind, but it is a completely reworked version of Pekka's Starship. Basically the inside ribbing is Pekka's, and then those mounts are Pekka's. So yes, that is important, and packs up like that. So that's the Advanced Starship, and then there's one more Starship derived thing. And that is the Starship Superlander. Right now it doesn't have all of its features. In particular, there's the petal portion. The petal base fits in to this. So this will actually be an ascent vehicle for the crew, potentially. But right now it's more in a cargo configuration. And it's got the landing thrusters, it's got RCS down here. That's what we've got there. And we've got mega air brakes, which may or may not attach right. I think I surface attached them. So these are like the stock air brakes, and they work the same way. And they're meant to go on here like this, and they will deploy. So that this can actually slow down. Technically they should be reversed. You wouldn't want it going nose first. So we're going tail first, but then they're curved like this. Not ideal, but still, it'd certainly help you slow down. And I decided to configure them like this because no other solution to slow this thing down would work. So I never made the hinge or what would obviously need to be a piston to extend these. Hopefully I'll do that later. I just completely forgot about it. I was supposed to do that. But now you have giant air brakes. So there will be other parts. There will eventually be trusses, and there will be other parts mainly meant for the design of ships with the Far Future mod. So I've got the Far Future mod. I've been doing stuff with that. These habs are meant for use with that, or for near future, or with KSP Interstellar or stuff like that. And I'm going to create more parts for this pack for that. That's why I needed to get it down to a smaller size, because it's going to get larger anyway. So 230 megabytes. I'll put the link in the video description. It'll be to GitHub, and hopefully people can enjoy it and it all works out. If it doesn't, please do tell me. So that is this is the Future Tech mod. That's what it is, Future Tech mod, and it'll be in your EDB mods folder, Future Tech. It's got two IVAs, the one for the little pod and the one for HAB2 and HAB3. And the one for HAB2 and HAB3 have raster prop monitor compatibility, as long as you have the right version of raster prop monitor, and I don't know which one that is, but yeah, in theory raster prop monitor works with them. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.